Hey, so are you considering moving to Florida from out of state? Or are you already in state and just don't like where you live in Florida and consider moving someplace else? Well, a lot of you probably have on your mind hurricanes and storms, especially if you've never been here before, or if you have lived here and you've been hit by those hurricanes in different parts of the state. This last year we had quite a bit, and a lot of people are saying, I'm out of here, but hold on. You need to watch tonight's video, okay, what I'm about to show you, because is there a place in Florida where you don't have hurricanes? No. But is there a place in Florida where the hurricane risk is less than any place else in the state? The answer is yes, and I'm going to show you that tonight. Hey, you know what? I've lived in Florida my whole life. Look at me. You can tell I've been around here a long time. I've lived in South Florida, I've lived in Central Florida, and I'm living in North Florida. In fact, I was in South Florida when Hurricane Andrew went through, although I wasn't down in Homestead, but I was close enough to it. Also, I've also experienced being in the eye of a hurricane. So I've gone through the storms. Now, I don't remember seeing as many powerful storms as we see now. These Cat 3, 4, and 5 seem to be a little more common. But up here, where I'm going to show you this area, you're just not going to see those Cat 3, the 5s generally. I mean, statistically, doesn't mean anything can happen. So whatever I tell you tonight has been in the past, but doesn't mean something can happen. Like the folks in North Carolina never thought they'd see the river shift and then, you know, the flooding they had. So it can happen. All right, now where is the best place? It's Northeast Florida. So let's take a look at that. And what I'm talking about, you've got the Jacksonville Metro Area basically, and then all the way down, and it goes down into Gainesville, and then you can go further south into Ocala. But if you want to be near a big metro area, then Jacksonville area and St. Augustine, and you still like some coastal living but want the least risk, then here it is, Northeast Florida. But don't just take my word for it. Let's look at some charts and some statistics. All right, first we're going to look at this map here from NOAA, which is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And this shows the historical path of hurricanes that have hit Florida since 1851. And you look at it, it's a mess, right? But that's because everything is on it. And notice all the different colors, okay? These colors represent different categories. So let me just take one I'll pull one Katrina out, okay? So we can look and see the color variations of that, and then you'll know what these colors represent on the map. As you can see here, the blue was a tropical depression. When it turned into a tropical storm, it went green. When it became a Cat 1, it was yellow. Orange, it was a Cat 2. Red was a Cat 3. That fuchsia color is a Cat 4, and the purple was a Cat 5. All right, now what I want to do is, historically, up here in this area, there's only been one Cat 3 that's ever come through, and it's been about in the 1800s, okay, when that went through. And it really wasn't even a direct hit here. It was actually west of here, but you've got, you still got the effects of it. It's still like we get the effects even when those hurricanes that were off in the Gulf, and then the one that went south of us, also Milton, we still got the effects up here. All right, now what I want to do is take a look here. Let's just go with we'll look at the Cat 5s. You see where the Cat 5s have been. Now we'll go look at the Cat 4s and see where they've been. Now remember, these Cat 4s and 5s. This is when they were the most there, but you look at the colors and you'll see what they were when they actually hit the coast, and a lot of them were those when they hit. Now we look at the Cat 3s, okay? And you see that even though, a Cat 3 or 4 or 5, came into the state, up here in Northeast Florida, by the time it got here, it could be, just a tropical storm, a tropical depression, or a Cat 1, okay? We really don't see much. Now, you will get some gust. Okay, now we'll just go down to the Cat 2 and the Cat 1, and then you can see how it starts to fill in. But notice the big thing here, down at where the worst parts are. South Florida, southeast, southwest, the Gulf Coast, but up here it seems to skirt this area. Okay, now I'm going to show you some other statistics, and this is from an insurance company, okay? Now, it's probably a couple of years old, so you could probably add 2 more storms to their total, but take a look at what they posted. Okay, they show here the most hurricane-prone areas in Florida. Okay, well, they're showing Northwest Florida ever since. Now they're going by when the hurricanes started being recorded back in the 1800s. Okay, Northwest Florida, 66 total hurricanes, including 14 that were Cat 3 through 5. All right, second, Southwest Florida, 49 total hurricanes, 17 that were Cat 3 through 5. Okay, we can add even to that now because of some of the latest hurricanes. Like I said, this was a couple years old. Number 3, Southeast Florida. That's over there, your Miami, Fort Lauderdale metro area and the Keys. 49 total hurricanes, including 16 that were Cat 3 through 5. And then the least prone areas in Florida, right here. Number 4, Northeast Florida, 26 total hurricanes, including one that was a Cat 3. All right, stay with me because I've got a lot more information that's going to be helpful for you up here in Northeast Florida on maybe where you would want to live so that you could still enjoy going to the beach like where I'm at right now. You know, a beautiful day like this. You can enjoy the weather. You can enjoy no state income tax. I mean, there's all kinds of things that are great about living here in Florida. All right. I've talked a lot about Cat 1, 2, 3, and now if you haven't experienced being in through a hurricane area, you may not know where all that breaks down. So look at this chart and let me break it down for you. Okay, when you hear Cat 1 hurricane, that is going to be where they have wind speeds, sustained wind speeds of 74 to 95 miles an hour. The Cat 2 hurricanes go from 96 to 110 miles an hour, and the Cat 3s 111 to 129. Cat 4s 130 to 156 miles per hour. Now they're getting really dangerous at that point. And Cat 5s, which are will just wipe everything out, are over 156 miles per hour. And that's almost like a giant tornado. All right, next we're going to look at some maps here by NOAA again that have to do with a return factor. And this really shows you how less risk Northeast Florida is up here, okay? And what these do, they go by how many years before another storm can hit this area at certain cat levels. So let's look at that chart right now. Okay, as we look at this first chart here, this is return periods of 74 miles per hour or above. So it's a Cat 1 or above, okay, hurricane. And the frequency is in the number of years a location will likely be affected by a hurricane. As you can see, our area is 13, the highest number only shared by 2 others, okay, in the state. All right, next chart here we look at 111 miles per hour or higher. Those are Cat 3s or stronger, okay? We are 40, the second highest, and I'm surprised the Gulf side has the highest, but they go by the stats where they were hit and they weren't. So they're figuring that it'd be 40 years before a Cat 3 would hit. Okay, some people say, well, maybe we're due because we haven't had one, for over 100 years or so. But I mean, this is the stats. When you look at the other numbers, all those other numbers like South Florida and all that, and on the Southwest Coast and the Panhandle, holy cow. And then also you can look up and in the Carolinas, they really get hit too a lot. And we're going to talk a little bit about that also. Okay, now I'm not saying that you don't get hit by, hurricanes, here that we don't get affected, but just not as much. Now, they will skirt the coast off of here. Okay, right now I'm in St. Augustine Beach actually, and they just went through a beach renourishment program because a lot of these people, like right behind me here, there's some homes that are right there on the beach and the ocean went all the way up there. And you can see how the sand was all pushed against these houses up here from these other storms that we had, and then they got the renourishment. Now, just to show you how much erosion takes place from these storms, even when they don't hit here, when you're right on the coast, okay, here is the St. Augustine Pier. Now, take a look at it. You can see that the edge of the pier is in the water. We're saying, well, that doesn't seem like much of a pier because it's sticking in only a little bit in the water. I could fish off the beach. Well, take a look at this map here. This here is an aerial shot, okay, from a Google Maps where they did a satellite after the renourishment, and take a look. The whole pier was on land. Okay, look how far the water was from the pier. And this renourishment program was just completed, okay, not too long ago. And then look, just from the storms we had and what we had coming through and the surges, look how much is washed away already, you know, of this pier, and it comes out. So as you can see, I mean, if you choose to live right on the beach and the coast, you do have that threat of the erosion, but most people don't, okay? Most people are inland. Now, a lot of people will get these beach houses that are you know, just down the street here because they like to be able to bike or walk to the beach. And so, you know, those can be affected too. So what we want to also talk about are evacuation zones. Now, all these counties have an evacuation zone map, okay? And these zone maps will tell you what areas are most likely to catch flooding from storm surge is usually what they go by with these evacuation maps, not so much wind. However, when they calculate all this, they do take in consideration the wind of the storm coming, also the tide at the time it comes, and a lot of other factors, and if there was previous flooding or not. So here's some examples of some maps. Like you can see here, Jacksonville, which is the Duval County map, and you see where these evacuation zones. Now, all of these maps, they have these evacuation zones by letter, A, B, C, D, and so forth. A being the highest level of you know, likelihood that you'd get, you know, a surge damage, okay, from high flooding. And then B is less, and C is less, and D so forth. And then some of them, like Clay County, when we look at the Clay County map here, you see a lot of it is around the St.Johns River, and then also around Black Creek. In fact, they even have a special designation for Black Creek, okay? And Black Creek does flood, okay, at times. And everything, you know, comes from the St. Johns River. The St. Johns River goes into the ocean, so when you got storm surges in the ocean, then of course that's what you're going to get. So another way to really look at it is a big picture is look at the state map. And when you see this, we can zoom into our area here, and you see really like in Clay County, Bradford County, parts of Putnam, I mean, I really don't have a lot of evacuation areas over here on the west side because you're further inland. And of course, the Gainesville area just doesn't have any. So that's something else when I'm looking at houses for folks and they really want to be concerned. You hear a lot about being in flood zone X, okay? Well, you can be in a flood zone X, which by the way, everyone wants to be in a flood zone X because it's the one that most lenders, when you have a mortgage, don't require flood insurance on the loan. So they like being in flood zone X. But some of these evacuation zones are in a flood zone X. So, you know, go figure. You got, you know, I mean, you got to figure it out. So, you know, of course, just because you're in an evacuation zone doesn't mean that you're going to get flooded out. For years and years, so many people, you know, we heard, you know, everybody crying wolf about the storm surges, these 20-foot storm surges we hear about. Never happened, okay? And a lot of people here, even in this Jacksonville area when we had Irma come through, it flooded in places, but it's not like what you see, you know, in these places where people are on their rooftops being rescued by helicopters in some of these places. It happens, you know. I think a lot of it was part of poor drainage, you know, and sewer systems and growth, where they built up too fast and didn't compensate for it, but we just didn't have all that in this area. All right, now here I'm at Jacksonville over here on the river. Just for a moment, I want to show you something about like the flooding you hear in other places, what we saw here. On YouTube, there's a video showing the flooding during Irma, okay, at this location, as you can see right here, okay, and it was on the national news, all right? Well, I'm standing in that location now to give you an idea. Look at, you saw where the water was just coming over. Well, here's the water fountain that was in there, okay? Here's this little area here that's open, that's just where some water goes through, but you can see the amount that came over the river there was enough that it just went below my knees. So as you can see, it isn't that bad. It's not like in these places where you've got the floods that come over, like where the river crests, like maybe like about 10 feet or 20 feet or something like that. It just didn't happen here. Okay, now that doesn't mean that it can't, that someday it could be over my head here, but in the time being, we haven't seen stuff like that, and that was during Irma, okay? All right, something else I want to show you here real quick is take a look at at this here. This was on the news footage, and they were talking, and listen to them describe how bad the flooding is and all that. And well, here, I'll just let you take a listen to it, and then I'll point some things out.
Yeah, and be careful because it looks like you're about to drive right into that river. It's hard to tell where the street begins and where the river ends. David, do you have any idea when we'll start to see the waters recede? I know there was a high tide about 3 hours ago there, but it still looks like there's a lot of water. Any idea when we'll start to see it recede?
Okay, as you notice this house that's right here on the corner, now check it out, okay, where that water's coming up to. It's just coming up to the deck, okay? Now some of these other homes that are lower, okay, they're gonna get more flooding like this, but this house was built up obviously an older home, and it was built up higher than some of these others that were down. And in fact, when they talk about how extreme this is, okay, they actually ask this guy here, you know, how much flooding he has, and listen to what he says.
How much? About 6 inches of water in the house as the waves continue to crash against the front. It's incredible. And remember, Stephanie.
So there you go, 6 inches of flooding during some of the worst flooding in Jacksonville. That's historic flooding, okay? What I'm saying is, okay, yeah, having some water in your house like that isn't good, but it's not like what we see in these places. Like I'm telling you, when the flood waters come up to the rooftops, it just didn't happen up here in Northeast Florida. Well, at least I didn't know of it. If there is a newsreel that shows it someplace, then okay. Now, I know in Clay County along Black Creek, there was definitely more flooding than this, okay, in Jacksonville at some of those homes. But I don't remember seeing on the news people being airlifted from helicopters off the top of the roofs of their homes. All right, so now let's head back to the beach. All right, this map here I'm showing you is the Gulf Stream. Okay, so how does the Gulf Stream play into all this with this hurricanes? Well, now I'm not a meteorologist, and I just did a little bit of research as I was putting this piece together, and I've always noticed that these hurricanes seem to like skirt up the northeast coast, and then they just go and slam right into the Carolinas, all right, and other areas, and sometimes they'll veer off, and it's because the Gulf Stream carries the warm water, okay? You see from the Gulf of Mexico as it goes up here along, it's close to South Florida, okay? But then when it gets up here into the St. Augustine, Jacksonville area, it's further out. And so that warm water is, hurricanes love that. That's like fuel for them. And see how it drives them kind of up there. Now, fronts coming through and all kinds of high pressure, low pressures around it, and steering currents have an effect on it. But this is one of the reasons why it goes up there. Also, the St.Johns River being so big in here in Jacksonville does help keep things a little bit cooler here, because St. Johns River does flow up, okay, and out. It's one that flows up north, okay, instead of flowing down. So those things are a factor, and that Gulf Stream is a pretty tough current. I used to scuba dive down in around Palm Beach and Fort Lauderdale area, and it wasn't far out to the Gulf Stream. You'd be down there and you'd hang on that anchor line, and you'd be doing like the Superman thing, stretched out, because that current's pulling you, and if you let go of that anchor line while you were up there, you'd be gone, okay? They wouldn't find you, okay? So you really had to, be careful with scuba diving there. Now, it depends on the storm. Sometimes we will get outer bands that will give us wind gusts that are stronger, from those two. And a lot of people talk about like mobile homes and frame-built homes. Everyone wants the concrete block house, they say, storm, but there's frame homes everywhere, all over the place. Now, you're going to find more along the coast here. You're going to find more of the block homes, or frame homes everywhere, even mobile homes. Now, I'm not talking about right here, but I'm talking more inland, like I'm saying, like Clay County and all. And I just wanted to let you know that at one time, I used to work for the phone company, and I would go out after storms on restoration, and I never really saw mobile homes that were blown apart by the winds that we had here. Doesn't mean there couldn't have been some, but most of them were damaged by trees and stuff, or a mobile home that was so old that something peeled off. But I've also seen it on regular homes too. So I've never seen a real big problem like that. Now, if I'm on a mobile home and I'm on one of these beach places, mobile home parks, yeah, I'm not going to stay for that because of the wind factor coming there. But when you're in places like Clay County, where there's a lot of them, or Starke, which is in Bradford County, and even Putnam County, then, you know, I've never seen them all torn apart, but that doesn't mean that a big wind, now they're rated at higher wind velocities now than they used to. After Hurricane Andrew, everything changed, and around early, you know, 2002 or something like that, they changed a lot of the codes. So they are, you know, rated for higher winds now than they used to be. You know, for the longest time, I used to get, everything I got was questions about alligators, okay? Alligators was the #1 topic. Even people that lived here, if they lived in the city, wanted to move out a little ways or on water, because we do have a lot of waterfront here on lakes and stuff, and it's not just the ocean or the river. And so that was it. But now because of all the awareness of these storms, now people ask about hurricanes. And I'll tell you something else about hurricanes too, is that hurricanes, you've got notice that they're coming, okay? You've got a lot of notice that they're coming. It's not like a tornado. You live in Tornado Alley or someplace like that where you got, what, I don't know, I've never lived there, but what, you got 10, 15 minutes, half hour at the most, maybe, that something's coming towards you. And an earthquake, I don't think there's any real warning that. All of a sudden the ground just starts shaking. And wildfires, I mean, that can happen anywhere. We've got them in Florida too, but it depends on where it starts, on how much notice you got to get out. But hurricanes, you can always prepare, okay? And you can, you know, judge for yourself what you would do, you know, in that preparation. So as you can see, you still can move to Florida, or if you're in Florida in a place that you're not happy with, you've got a place that you can move to where there is less risk. And so we've shown that to you. So, hey, until you schedule your trip and come out here and want to hang out on the beach with me, I'm out of here.